Phyrexia.
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 Phyrexia. Its merest utterance enough to chill the spine and cast the mind in fear, conjuring images of grotesque amalgamations, an unholy weave of metal and flesh, bent on conquest. An irresistible force wishing to swallow all things and integrate them into a twisted view of perfection. The scourge of countless planes since the time of their dark patron Yawgmoth. A new Phyrexia has risen from the ashes of old, centuries later, to finally realize an ambition denied them. Elish Norn, mother of machines, and her countless armies of Phyrexia stand at the precipice of glory, poised to conquer the blind eternities and dominate the multiverse, soaking untold planes in blood and oil until all are one. It's the grand culmination of a dramatic story whose beginnings extend many years into the past. A tale of tragedy and valor, ambition and deceit, of heartrending sacrifice and dark betrayal, that no matter the outcome, will forever alter the fate of the multiverse, as heroes, villains, and those between put forth all their will to stand behind or against the march of the machine. To truly understand this epic, we must trace its history from the first stirrings of glistening oil to the rise of new Phyrexia, the completion of an invasion weapon, and a desperate strike at the heart of darkness. Our tale begins with the planeswalker Karn on the pristine plain of Argentum. Let's dive in. But before we begin, I'd like to thank Aura for sponsoring this video. The multiverse of magic is filled with wonder, excitement, knowledge, and creativity, and the internet is much the same, but it's also filled with danger. Anyone can find anything on the internet, including personal information. Your name, your email, home address, phone number, passwords, and even your family are all accessible at the touch of a button because of data brokers who sell your private information to scammers, spammers, and telemarketers. You need protection, and this is where today's sponsor Aura steps in. Aura is the new standard in digital security and offers comprehensive protection of private information, finances, and technology. Aura monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in a data breach or exposed on the dark web, and gives you recommendations on what to do. But they take it beyond identity theft, equipping you with antivirus and anti-malware services, privacy assistance, and Smart Vault monitored cloud storage, all for little cost to you. Plans are competitively priced and start as low as $12 a month, and you can use my link at aura.com/Lorebrarians or scan the QR code on the screen to begin a free 2-week trial and see how much of your info is being shared. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll need, all inside one easily accessible app. They stop data brokers in their tracks and keep your privacy private. So let Aura do the hard work and give you peace of mind online. Start your free trial today at aura.com/Lorebrarians, link in the description. Shortly after ascending to the status of Planeswalker, Karn explored the limitless possibilities now opened and used his earth-shattering power to construct a metallic world of calculated perfection he dubbed Argentum. For a time, he looked upon his pristine creation and the golems that patrolled it with great satisfaction, but a wanderlust gripped Karn's heart and drew him from Argentum. He did, however, leave behind something terrible, a dark contagion, a grim stain innocuous and small enough to avoid detection by Argentum's warden, seeped into the plane and would for years slowly work, invisibly, to corrupt the metal world. This stain was a drop of glistening oil, a vile concoction of Phyrexia, spilled from Karn's own Phyrexian heartstone. Glistening oil is a contagion that spreads the virulent disease known as Phyresis, which simultaneously attacks the host's body while twisting its mind. The oil mutates blood, bone, and vital organs, and corrupts the soul with darkness. We see it on display in the card Phyresis, and hear its effectiveness in the flavor text of Loxodon Convert. Just one drop of glistening oil can eventually stain even a soul as stalwart as a Loxodon's beyond redemption. Due to his spark, the Planeswalker was greatly inoculated from the oil's corruption and unaware of its presence. Within the substance, a dark desire was contained. The genetic blueprints, the codes, instincts, and desires of Phyrexia remained active inside the oil, though the vile god Yawgmoth had been slain. The flavor text of Phyrexian Hulk enlightens us to the oil's purpose. An invasion weapon of ages past, the glistening oil contained the blueprints of countless atrocities. Argentum proved to be a most hospitable substrate upon which the glistening oil worked. Its metal malleable, its warden susceptible to influence. For decades, the oil eroded argentum and gave rise to the peculiar substance known as mycosynth, a metallic fungus whose spores transformed metal to flesh and flesh to metal, a dark allusion to the plane's future. Oil and mycosynth worked to corrupt argentum's heart, as well as its warden Memnarch, whose mind grew twisted by visions and voices, prompting grim designs. Memnarch usurped ownership of the plane from Karn and remade it into Mirrodin, to which he brought thousands of trapped souls, forming an experimental terrarium. Mycosynth continued to shape nature and artifice on Mirrodin, and Memnarch was consumed with an idea instilled by the glistening oil. Phyrexia wishes to expand. It will not long be content to remain on one plane, desiring to extend beyond the blind eternities. To this end, it fills Memnarch with a burning impetus to acquire a planeswalker spark, thus acting as foundation for his experiment to cull one from Mirrodin's denizens. The conflict between Memnarch and the heroes of Mirrodin is catalogued in the Mirrodin block. With the golem's defeat, and with Karn's excoriating return to Mirrodin, it would seem the plane spared from Phyrexian corruption. But the glistening oil yet remains, yet performs its work with industry, and yet portents dire consequences for Mirrodin. For over 100 years, Phyrexia bides its time as the glistening oil continues its corruption, and the denizens of Mirrodin remain terribly unaware. But symptoms of the plane's infection grow more acute and more obvious. The Scars of Mirrodin set highlights the interested response to increasing reports of bizarre occurrences as the plane seeks to understand. We see this illustrated in the card's steady progress and instill infection, while the flavortext of Kemba's Skyguard tells us Mirrodin's first interactions with evolved Phyrexian abominations. We're now to dispense aid to any Mirren we see battling anything strange, Regent's orders. But appraisal and reaction to the situation come far too late, as realization is quickly succeeded by an abrupt invasion from within in the form of new Phyrexia. The glistening oil had worked to corrupt, transfigure, and spawn countless hordes of Phyrexian horrors on a grand scale. Unlike their predecessors of old, new Phyrexia has adapted under Mirrodin's 5 suns to embrace all colors of mana, creating rich, varied, and conflicting subfactions. Beneath the White Sun, Elish Norn leads the machine orthodoxy as Grand Cenobite. Deeply religious and uniquely dogmatic, these Phyrexians espouse the teaching of the Father of Machines and convert unbelievers. Blue-aligned Jin Gataxius experiments on methods of Phyrexian completion as the wizards and scientists of the Progress Engine promote the Great Synthesis, realizing conversion of all to Phyrexia. Under the Black Sun, ambitious Sheoldred has risen to lead the 7 Steel Thanes and their hordes of rotten, infected abominations to spread pestilent corruption. Urabrask and the Red-aligned Silent Furnace work to power new Phyrexia's metallic creations and forge ingenious weapons of much devastation. And under the influence of the Green Sun, Vorinclex rules over the premier beasts of the Vicious Swarm, who represent the height and raw tenacity of mutated, unnatural evolution. In the heart of Mirrodin's corrupted core sits an equally tainted Karn, his heart stained by glistening oil, his mind warped by Praetor's whispers. Karn rules as new Phyrexia's Father of Machines. The corrupting invasion of Mirrodin supplants the landscape and its denizens with twisted versions as countless succumb to the oil, whose terminal consequence is loss of self, of identity, and conversion into Phyrexian by means of completion. The Mirren partisans lead a willful resistance united in spirit by the memory of an untarnished Mirrodin. But they fight a losing battle. Desperate for assistance, the planeswalker Koth, a Mirren native, enlists Elspeth, Tyrell, and Venser in locating Karn and halting new Phyrexia's advance. Grim reality faces the heroes as they discover Mirrodin is beyond saving, its very core corrupted, and they learn of the fate of Karn. But in a final gambit, Venser sacrifices himself to cleanse the Silver Golem and liberate him from Phyrexia's grip. The planeswalkers have little choice but to abandon the dwindling Mirren forces to their fate. New Phyrexia proves itself an indefatigable foe, working insidiously to manipulate from within and overtly to crush from without. The culmination of the Mirren Phyrexian War is summarized in the flavortext of War Report. Underling Ethu's 263rd report read simply, "Yes, my lord. Overwhelmingly, my lord. This marked the end of the Mirran Phyrexian War. Elish Norn uses the impetus gained from Phyrexia's victory to consolidate power and claim preeminence over the other praetors. She indoctrinates the masses and converts thousands of loyal supplicants, engendering an aura of divinity among their machine orthodoxy. She manipulates, spies, and openly attacks the other factions to swiftly end bitter infighting that would only work to weaken New Phyrexia, for she is already nurturing designs far greater than the other praetors can know. Her claim for primacy is symbolized in the completion of Atraxa, a captured Mirran angel, to whose corruption most all the praetors contribute. This ceremony unites New Phyrexia and vaults Elish Norn to the throne as Mother of Machines. We see it beautifully illustrated in the card Atraxa Praetor's voice, who bears all colors of mana of those involved. Notably, the silent furnace of Urabrask maintains strong independence and refuses to recognize Norn. Added to the splinter faction are some of the more ambitious Black Alliance Steel Thanes, including the intractable Sheoldred, who harbors her own ambitions. Regardless, New Phyrexia is quick to dismantle Mirrodin, swallow remaining resistance forces, and erode all memory of the plane that was. The curtain closes on Mirrodin, which is slowly terraformed and reprocessed into New Phyrexia, and we are left with a chilling allusion to grand designs and lofty ambition. Not a group to be satisfied, word reaches Phyrexian ears in whispers that worlds beyond their own exist, which sparks desire within Elish Norn to bring unto them brilliant perfection. As darkness descends, an idea is instilled within the praetors that initiates the next chapter in the Phyrexian saga, whose devious intimations are made clear in the flavor text of Elish Norn Grand Cenobite. The Gitaxians whisper among themselves of other worlds. If they exist, we must bring Phyrexia's magnificence to them. Intervening years bring nothing but opaque mystery as the multiverse is blind to the tumultuous roilings within New Phyrexia. On the plane of Kaldheim, realms float along the world tree, separated from another in space, but connected to the tree's sturdy branches. Ghost assassin and planeswalker Kaya is hired under dubious auspices to track down a beast described by locals in shocked accounts as a grisly, rapacious monster never before seen. Kaya hunts the creature through Kaldheim's alpine forests, only to discover that it's in actuality New Phyrexia's green-aligned praetor Vorinclex. It seems the terrible scourge can sojourn beyond the blind eternities. But how? Tezzeret, a planeswalking artificer from Alara, who houses the planar portal technology within his filigree body, struck a deal with Phyrexia. In return for his collusion in transporting beings with the planar portal, Tezzeret is promised replacement of his degrading Ethereum body with the indestructible metal Darksteel possessed by Phyrexia. The reasons behind Vorinclex's presence on Kaldheim remain unknown to Kaya, but as the gargantuan praetor terrorizes the plane, he takes a keen interest in both the World Tree and its mystical sap known as Tyrite. Tyrite confers onto the gods of Kaldheim unique powers that grant them increased vitality, resilience, and the ability to walk the space between the realms of Kaldheim, much akin to planeswalking. Vorinclex muscles his way into the Tyrite sanctum at the base of the World Tree and absconds with a seedling sample of its sap before returning through a portal to New Phyrexia. Questions swirl around the potential motives behind this theft and the keen interest in objects deeply connected to the blind eternities, but they remain tragically unanswered for some time. Kamigawa, a futuristic plane where tradition and progress, science and mysticism weave together in awe-inspiring harmony. It's a land of spirit where kami are revered and present in all aspects of life, and where the mortal realm is separated from the spiritual by a thin veil that nonetheless links the two together. Beneath the fluorescent edifice is a seedy underground of corruption and greed. It's within Kamigawa's illicit underbelly that planeswalker Kaito Shizuki happens upon a metal beast unnatural to his plane, Jin Gitaxius, the blue-aligned praetor of New Phyrexia. Again, with Tezzeret's assistance, Gitaxius constructs a base of operations from which he performs several experiments to progress Phyrexian machinations. As on Kaldheim, Kamigawa is a plane divided into two distinct metaphysical realms, and the praetor scrutinizes the nature of kami and their essence as beings who can innately pierce the veil separating mortal from spiritual. Phyrexia continues to ponder the blind eternities, and Jin Gitaxias' experimentation leads to a breakthrough in the process of completion. As creatures devoid of true souls, Phyrexians cannot innately ignite planeswalker sparks, and the presence of said sparks bestows upon an individual resistance to the glistening oil contagion that brings about completion. This impasse is shattered as Jin learns how to complete a planeswalker through study of the kami. This brings new Phyrexia ever closer to achieving what even Yawgmoth failed. Gitaxias is confronted, however, by the Wanderer, Kato, and Tamiyo, who seriously damage his metal carapace and devastate his lab. But again, Phyrexia is a move ahead, and Gitaxias escapes with Tezzeret's assistance, already in possession of the requisite data, and more importantly, a prisoner on whom to test this theory. Tamiyo is captured, kidnapped, and brought to Phyrexia's surgical bays, whereupon Jin performs the first completion of a planeswalker. Seen in the art of the card Tamiyo's completion. Hopelessly lost, Tamiyo offers corrupted subservience and a spark to Elesh Norn's devious schemes. It's a crushing blow to Kato and the Wanderer, who look for allies to dissolve Phyrexia's rising tide. The glamorous carousing found within bustling New Capenna belies the plane's dubious past, one directly connected to Planeswalker Elspeth Tirel's own, as well as that of Phyrexia. Long ago, Capenna fell under threat of invasion by minions of Yawgmoth's old Phyrexia. Besieged on all fronts and fighting a losing battle, Capenna's angels' mere presence proved enough to hold Phyrexian legions at bay, but insufficient to win victory. Witnessing the power of the Archangel's aura in weakening Phyrexian armies, Capenna's demons betrayed them, leached their essence, and distilled it into the mystical substance known as Halo. Halo proved a boon, and allowed survivors to escape Cataclysm, ultimately founding lustrous New Capenna behind its shielding magic. Phyrexia was eventually defeated, but remnants of their invasion yet stalk Capenna's wastes beyond the city to raid camps of nomadic survivors, unable to reach the city's protection. Tirel's first interaction with this evil came when she was captured, imprisoned and tortured at a young age. Her traumatic history has left an indelible mark on Elspeth's soul, a boiling contempt and hatred for all that is Phyrexia. It's this angelic halo that rules New Capenna's criminal underworld and lure both Elspeth and Phyrexian agents to the plane, for its purported power against the vile faction. After she bore witness to Mirrodin's corruption, Tirel seeks to understand how Halo can save Capenna from a similar fate and prevent future planes from succumbing. The red-aligned Praetor Urabrask likewise arrives on Capenna with Tezzeret's aid to glean more about Halo and its potential use as superweapon against his own kind. But Urabrask holds motives outside Norn's purview. As a being embodying Red Mana's fierce independence, the Praetor wishes to break from New Phyrexia's rigid yoke, so colludes with Tezzeret in acquiring Halo, thus empowering a dangerous revolt against Norn that has long been fomenting. Both the Praetor and the Planeswalker leave Capenna, enlightened to Halo's import and conflicts swirling beyond the horizon, and something deep within Elspeth makes its presence apparent as subtle allusions are made hinting at her angelic, divine origins. She planeswalks away after the events of New Capenna, armed with a Halo-infused blade, possessed of the substance's significance, and resolved once more to face her tormenting nightmare in New Phyrexia. By this point, tales of Phyrexian infiltration on multiple planes trickle through the Blind Eternities and alert several walkers to the looming threat, including members of the Gatewatch. No longer is Mirrodin an isolated incident. No longer is the glistening oil quarantined to New Phyrexia. Praetors are seeking, gathering knowledge and resources, but to what dark ends? No longer is idle pondering acceptable. Conditions necessitate action if Phyrexia is to be thwarted before it expands beyond containment, its dark grasp extending beyond the Blind Eternities. On Dominaria, the plane long ago ravaged by old Phyrexia's invasion, Karn uncovers an object of immense power lost to time. The Golgothian Silex, which millennia prior ended the Brothers' War in Cataclysm, might, in the hands of the Silver Golem Karn and Gatewatch, be used to unleash similar devastation upon New Phyrexia. We see its acquisition in the illustration of Karn's Silex. But during his search for the artifact, he realizes that Phyrexia has already infiltrated Dominaria through conversion and corruption of a sect of cultists known as the Society of Mishra, who along with the Brotherhood of Gix, revere Phyrexian ancient remnants of the prior invasion. The Silver Golem also learns of Sheoldred's presence on the plane. The Black-Aligned Praetor has been dispatched to establish a beachhead for full-scale invasion through completion and installation of thousands of Phyrexian sleeper agents. These are Dominarian natives horribly corrupted against their will and transformed into spies of Phyrexia so subtly that they themselves are often unaware of the process. Dominaria is Phyrexia's ancient enemy, willful and obstinate. It must first be dealt with before the culmination of their schemes. Karn learns this firsthand and through a scrying construct seen in Silver Scrutiny, whose text reads, Karn's creation allowed him to monitor events across Dominaria, and everything he saw worried him. The Silver Golem meets with fellow planeswalkers Teferi, Ajani, Jaya, and Archmage Joda to apprise them of the dire situation and urge the unification of Dominaria against growing threats under the banner of a new coalition. Their pleas fall on deaf ears. Phyrexia is a ghost story, a horrid tale told around fires to frighten children. Phyrexians haven't been seen in centuries, and the painful memory softened by time. This lack of conviction on behalf of Dominaria opens opportunity for Sheoldred, who activates her sleepers embedded across the plane. In a flash, all of Dominaria is cast into frantic disarray as allies, friends, loved ones, and neighbors transform into disfigured, metallic abominations and violently turn against their kin. Any sort of defense is momentarily weakened, allowing Sheoldred to lead a large invading contingent of new Phyrexians in slaughter. Dominaria's heroes agree to focus Sheoldred's aggression and buy time for forces to gather in plane-wide coalition. Karn offers himself, the Silex, and the powerful fortress factory of ancient Thran design, known as the Mana Rig, as enticing bait for the Phyrexians. In the ensuing Battle of the Mana Rig, thousands of coalition members perish under relentless Phyrexian assault, with countless mechanical abominations slain in equal measure. As conflict rages, realization dawns that Phyrexia will overtake the field and the heroes initiate the Mana Rig's self-destruct sequence, intending on cleansing Dominaria of the vile horde in an enormous blast of energy. They're thwarted, however, by one of their own in a tragic revelation. Ajani, ever a steadfast warrior and friend, has been completed some time before and numbers amongst Phyrexia's sleepers. He kills Jaya, destroys the Silex, and defeats Karn. At the nadir of hope, a desperate coalition activates the destruct sequence and levels Phyrexia's assault force, but not before Sheoldred and Ajani leave to New Phyrexia with a significantly weakened and disassembled Karn as their prisoner. He will be brought before the splendor of Elesh Norn. Only ash, death, and hopelessness are abundant as coalition forces retrieve their fallen. Dominaria has been dealt a crushing blow. The Gatewatch lost their greatest asset with the Silex's destruction. Not even riposte is possible, as all present know Phyrexia will return in greater force to conquer the plane. But in despair's depths, a glimmer of hope shines, as planeswalking artificer Saheeli Ray crafts a filigree replica of the Silex, seen in the card, the Filigree Silex, using original blueprints left by Karn. The Gatewatch, however, knows not the secret to unlocking its devastating potential. An ingenious plan is born when the heroes convene within Urza's tower, bastion of the great planeswalker, an ancient abandoned home to his mind's many creations. Using Urza's drafts of a time manipulation apparatus, Teferi's chronomancy, and Saheeli's metalcraft, the Gatewatch construct the temporal anchor, a device intended to project Teferi's essence thousands of years into Dominaria's past. Their goal? To witness events surrounding the mythical brothers' war between Urza and Mishra, in hopes of uncovering the secret to the Silex activation. For it was Urza himself who first used the artifact to bring about a destructive end to the war. It's a terrible gambit, fraught with danger, but it's the only sliver of hope to which the Gatewatch clings. The future of the multiverse depends on their success. The heroes on Dominaria are divided into two groups. Teferi, Saheeli, and the spectral planeswalker Kaya work to perfect the temporal anchor, infuse it with mighty chronomancy, and use Kaya's ethereal gifts to project Teferi thousands of years into the past. The second group, meanwhile, is tasked with refitting the battlements and shoring the defenses of Urza's tower. They must at all costs protect the anchor from inevitable attack by returning Phyrexian forces, who must never know the purpose behind their activity. This befalls largely upon planeswalkers of the Gatewatch, supplemented by Dominaria's coalition. Nissa Ravane, Ren, and the Archmage Joda are met by Elspeth Tyrell, who journeys to the plane resolved to fill her role and to save her dearest friend Ajani from his tragic fate. No longer can she allow the nightmares of her past to immobilize her and prevent her from ending them in her future. Tyrell comes with the knowledge of Halo and the conviction that Phyrexia must forever be destroyed. Her martial training on the plane of Bant and a personal history confronting Phyrexians determines Elspeth to leadership in the tower's defense. After several failed attempts, the temporal anchor is prepared, and Teferi's spirit violently jettisoned to the time of the Brothers' War. This process is highlighted in the spotlight cards Forging the Anchor and Soul Partition, whose flavor text reads, Teferi's body couldn't travel through time far enough, but with Kaya's help, his spirit could. Separated from his body, the temporal pilgrim spirit canvasses the decades surrounding the brothers' conflict to uncover clues on the Golgothian Silex. As Teferi journeys precariously, Phyrexian forces continue their invasion of Dominaria, and thousands approach the gates at Urza's tower. Elspeth's mettle is immediately challenged. The hero of countless battles proves indispensable in leadership and martial charisma as she coordinates defenses with Joda, Nissa, Ren, and legions of Saheeli's automaton soldiers. They achieve victory on the field and obliterate the large Phyrexian assault force, but elsewhere on the plane, Coalition armies are bitterly embattled against countless more invaders. Tezzeret briefly appears before Tyrell with a warning. Beware Norn and her dark designs. Soon there will be nowhere to hide for those who oppose the Mother of Machines. Though Urza's tower remains standing, Teferi learns the fickle perils of time manipulation, even for a chronomancer of his renown. At times overshooting, at others undershooting the climactic Battle of Argoth, Teferi strains the temporal anchor to its experimental limits. At last, he finds his moment. At last, he witnesses the devastating fury unleashed by the Golgothian Silex in Urza's hands. Urza Planeswalker ascends, and Dominaria is brought to ruin. Teferi's spectral essence confronts Urza, imploring to understand the secrets of the artifact's activation, to which he replies simply but solemnly. No spell or incantation fills the Silex with power. Need, desperation, an individual willing to pour their life, their being, their soul into the bowl is necessary. Need and the conviction to carry out the task. But Teferi's realization returns broken to Kaya in the current day, fragmented as the Chronomancer's spirit desynchronizes and is caught in time, whisked away to memories unknown, which we see illustrated in the card Desynchronize. Its text reads, Before Kaya could pull Teferi's spirit back, the overloaded temporal anchor failed, and he was set adrift in the currents of time. He awakens in a daze on a beach of white sand, unseen by outside eyes for many centuries. Familiarity washes over the planeswalker as he discovers he's washed ashore on his home continent of Zhalfir, a land that, by his own hand, has been phased out of the time stream since Phyrexia's first invasion and thought lost forever. He now numbers among the lost as the temporal anchor overheats and strands Teferi on Zhalfir. Licking their wounds and lamenting the loss of Tamiyo and Ajani, the Gatewatch, Coalition, and heroes across the multiverse convene on Dominaria to take inventory, to assess their situation, and to deliberate on how best to confront new Phyrexia, whose means and motives remain dangerously opaque. The Gathering Alliance is joined by Walker's Kaito Shizuki and the Wandering Emperor, who have had past dealings with nefarious Jin Gitaxias on Kamigawa. Tyvar Kell, an elf warrior and native of Kaldheim, likewise harbors resentment for Phyrexia after Vorinclex rampaged through his home plane. Nahiri, an ancient and powerful lithomancer from the plane of Zendikar, the Gorgon and Golgari Queen Vraska, and Coppercoat outcast Luca of Ikoria swell the ranks of those gathered. After much discussion, the group highlights complacent inaction responsible for allowing Phyrexia's infection to fester within the multiverse. Only with a swift and violent counterstrike can Elesh Norn be thwarted and the plague of Phyrexia excoriated. With solemn determination and weighed by significance, they elect to send a strike team of planeswalkers outfitted with the filigree Silex and led by Elspeth Tyrell to pierce the heart of New Phyrexia and unleash world-shattering destruction. Preparing for their journey, the heroes can't comprehend Phyrexia's own preparations, nor do they foresee the Praetor's ends. Through this story, Phyrexian agents have traveled beyond their realm to distant worlds in acquisition of knowledge and resources. Their close alliance with Tezzeret has earned Phyrexia the ability to travel across the blind eternities. Vorinclex successfully infiltrated Kaldheim and returned with a seedling sample of Tyrite from the branching world tree that interconnects the plane's realms. Jin Gataxias' research on Kami led to the breakthrough of completing a planeswalker, and through Tamio's Phyrexianization, brought a spark and knowledge of countless planes across the multiverse into their possession. Urabrask uncovered Halo's secrets on New Capenna, its properties as an effective weapon against Phyrexia, and a tool on which he may rely to foment internal rebellion. Sheoldred has destroyed hopes, broken the Golgothian Silex, captured Karn, scattered coalition defenses, and initiated the second Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria, preemptively striking at the greatest threat to their power. But what dark machinations stir within Elesh Norn's mind? To what have these grim intimations been pointing? The Mother of Machines bears her secrets close, but one fact remains undeniable. Phyrexia is ascendant. The scourge of the multiverse sits poised to unleash devastation, sow corruption, and conquer resistance under waves of depraved legions, to bless all with completion and unite all under Phyrexia's banner. They are at the precipice of glory, of extending their will beyond the confines of New Phyrexia. Our heroes know not how close, but desperation will force them to horrible truths. So ends part 1 of the Phyrexian story arc, and stay tuned for part 2 in which we'll explore the Planeswalker's strike against Phyrexia, the climactic march of the machines and its aftermath. Thanks so much for watching, and now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on Phyrexia, which heroes will prove most significant in facing the threat, and how you think this tale will end, as well as suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the podcast or the blog, where content is uploaded frequently. I want to thank my amazing supporters over on Patreon who make all of this possible, and I couldn't do it without their fantastic support. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.